This is perfect for the Devils. Trade options out there, good ones. With the Devils having some needs, what is Tom Fitzgerald thinking? Implications, let's break it down. Welcome in, Devil fans. Glad you're here with us today. Hope you'll stick around for this summer. Hit the subscribe button as we continue into the off season. So, the fourth period came out with an article showing trade targets, players that teams, might be ready to move on for. Whether that be because they want to contend or just feel like there needs to be a fresh start. Players maybe no longer fit what that team is trying to do. And you know what? Maybe their cap doesn't necessarily work out. Maybe there are teams out there that might want them. And going through this article, it was 25 players. There are a few names that stand out in terms of what New Jersey is looking to do, what they want to do, how they can be better this season. And first on that list, center Marco Rossi. So Marco Rossi is a really interesting one. You go back, this is a top 10 pick. Just had a 60-point year. Playoffs, only played around 11 minutes a night, scored 2 goals. So when I look at Marco Rossi, and I looked at where, Minnesota, they wanted him in the top 10. And for some reason, Minnesota just wants to get rid of him. They don't want to pay him. For some reason, Minnesota wants to move on from Marco Rossi. And when I think of Minnesota, this has been for years. Minnesota cannot figure out a number one center. They never have had that number one center where they, can go on and have a contending team with. You thought that maybe they were looking that way when they drafted Marco Rossi, 9th overall, and he just showed a 60-point season. No, for some reason, Minnesota wants to move on. So when I see something like that, it definitely does come to mind. It definitely is a little bit of a concern. I know there are other players that they have to sign, like Kirill Kaprizov, that's coming up quick, but why can't they figure out a way to make Marco Rossi work? Why isn't he a priority for Minnesota? Why can't they figure out, how to get a contract done with a type of player that they really never had? So when you look at New Jersey, obviously your 1-2 is Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier. You have an advantage over the rest of the division. No other team in your division has that center duo, go down the middle. Obviously, if you're going to go get Marco Rossi, he'd be your third line center. You don't want to put a ton of money into your bottom six. What does he want? Why is Minnesota moving on? Is it because he wants, that $6-7 million? Or, they just don't feel this. He just not get along with head coach John Hynes. And I don't think Minnesota's completely, in love or, completely loyal to John Hynes or want to see him there long term. But for some reason, they don't want to pay Marco Rossi. So Marco Rossi, a name that keeps going into trade rumors. Devils could benefit. Number probably could be a concern. John Gabriel Pio. Look, you look at what the New York Islanders are doing with their, new management. They're moving off players. They're going into the rebuild. They are completely, wired to it. It's what they want to do. They know that they can't win with this roster. And John Gabriel Pio in his final year, definitely a player who could be on the market. If you're New Jersey, cheaper option. You're not locked into it. Could be a third-line center. Had a much better year last year than he did the year before. He scored 42 points, 14 goals, 28 assists. Somebody who can fit your third-line center role. Someone who's played well in the playoffs. So maybe this is more of a deadline type of move if you're the Devils, but somebody who's definitely going to be out there. Because Darsh has shown it. He showed moving on from Noah Dobson. He's not afraid to move on from players. He knows they just drafted number 1 overall. He wants to create assets. Devils have assets, have players they could throw the Islanders' way, and, you're not really locked in. He's got 1 year left. You can go out there, get your third-line center option. Would become a problem again next season, but for 1 year, you're good. You have your third-line center. I'm big into not throwing a ton of money, ton of, years at a bottom 6 player. John Gabriel Pio could be that player for a season. Jordan Kyrou, throw a little bit more money at him. 70-point player, you need wing help. Jordan Kyrou, instant wing help. Instant, goal scorer, somebody who can play on the top line, somebody who can actually give you, that number 1 winger spot, alongside Jesper, Bratt, and Jack Hughes. You're not really worrying as much when you have Jordan Kyrou. You're getting that production. production, at a high level, almost point per game player. I think Jordan Kyrou makes a lot of sense. Now the trade package, probably pretty big. You're looking at definitely a first round pick, probably a little bit more, but Jordan Kyrou definitely somebody who St. Louis seems to have thought about getting rid of. And Jordan Kyrou, a name that's been out there, would really work in the Devils system. Igor Chikov, we know, just requested a trade. He wants out. He doesn't like it in Columbus. Columbus, they're looking to move. They want to be better this year. They saw last year they were one of the top scoring teams in NHL. They feel like they have a good, young, nice core, and they're developing, and they have a chance to make the playoffs this year. They have their defensemen basically signed up. They want to see if they can make a move, maybe get a player who's a little bit more ready right now, and they can move off. Now, if you're New Jersey, probably a little bit tougher to move off of one of your top guys. But who could they see? Who would they want? I don't think you're throwing Dawson Mercer into a trade for Igor Chikov, but is there a way you can figure out a way that Columbus likes it? Could he go into a 3-way deal? I am a big Chikov fan. A player who has been on pace for 25 goals, just really can't stay in the lineup. So, maybe it's a better fit in New Jersey, but Chikov, another player potentially on the board for New Jersey. Sticking in Columbus, Demetri Veronov. Look, player came out last year, big body, can play in your bottom six, still just 24 years old. He's an RFA. Columbus, again, they might want to get somebody a little bit more ready right now. Could they package him? What are they looking at? What do they want type value back? From what it seems like, though, Columbus is looking, to get better soon. They want to make a push for the playoffs this year. They feel that they can. I mean, they just moved off Patrick Laine the year prior. They're not afraid to move off of players and get better right now. Veronov, another player who could be out there. And the last guy who I think makes, outside of probably Jordan Kyrou, makes the most amount of sense, biggest, impact player you could say, is Mason McTavish. Now, out of all these guys outside of Kyrou, he's going to be the hardest one to get. Third overall pick, looked like he's developing pretty nice. Anaheim, still a young team, doesn't necessarily need to move on from him, but it seems like they've had a trouble time with the contract. Do they want to go long-term? Do they not? I think Mason McTavish might want to, get his money, and Anaheim's like, well, you know what? We're not a very good team right now, or maybe, not a contending team. Let's wait on that. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Anaheim finds their way into an 8th seed or even a playoff spot next season. But, with what they've been doing, acquiring some older veteran players, moving off young players. They know they have a ton of young forwards. They have some really nice young defensemen who maybe find a full-time role in the NHL this year. Mason McTavish has looked like a player who Anaheim could move on from. Third-line center, Devils need a third-line center. Probably looks a little bit better than the centers that they have right now in the lineup. I mean, you go look at their lineup. They never figured out fourth-line center all of last season. I don't think Cody Glass is a third-line center. Would be nice on the fourth line. There are options out there for the Devils. Let me know in the comments which players do you like. Who do you want to see the Devils go after? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys all very soon. Hope you hit the subscribe button and have a great rest of, I think it's nighttime now, so have a great rest of your guys' night.